Let's move on to the 1-6 Miami Dolphins taking on the 4-2 Buffalo Bills. This is known as Puma Bowl number 2. The Buffalo Bills are coming off of a bye, but on the other end, the Dolphins are coming off a pretty brutal loss, 30-28 final score, where Tua might have sealed his fate as it pertains to being the quarterback for the Miami Dolphins going forward. Now, hovering all of this over the game is the Deshaun Watson rumors, and per John McClain, the Dolphins and Texans have agreed on compensation, and Stephen Ross has signed off on the deal, but on the condition that Watson settles his legal issues stemming from 22 accusations of sexual misconduct, and that he has to get some sort of indication from Goodell as to whether or not how many games Watson will be suspended. So, with all that being said, Puma, I think it's a foregone conclusion. We all believe the Bills are going to win this game. But let's talk about that Deshaun Watson angle real quick on, what's happening there, why it hasn't gone through. Do you think it will go through, the trade will go through before the trade deadline next week, especially with the stipulations of clearing up the 22 accusations of sexual misconduct?
Yeah, I think the trade's going to go through. I think this is just, a bargaining move to try to either get, enhanced protections for draft picks, like if he's suspended for the off the field issues, are they being the Dolphins going to get any compensation back because they can't use Watson? I really think that's all it is. I mean, at this point, with all these reports going out and like let's be honest, like the pussyfooting around of, oh, well, Tua's our guy, but we talked about the rumors and I'm not going to address these rumors and I'm keeping our conversations private, but like everyone's running to their favorite reporter at the Houston Chronicle or Pro Football Network, which, by the way, that's not a shot at PFN. Those guys have been doing great work over there, but it's just they're planting the ground. The fan base wants something different. At this point, I want something different. I was never a fan of Tua. I've said it every time this has come up on the podcast. I mean, it's got to stop. Like he can't stay healthy. Every time he runs with the football, he'll go down in a heap. I mean, he looked okay against the Falcons, but then they get a crucial turnover. They have a spot to win the game, and he throws a back-breaking interception in the end zone. Like you can't do that. Like your defense has bailed you out so many times this year. I think Stephen Ross just needs to shit or get off the pot at this point. He's not doing his embattled head coach any favors. He's not doing this locker room any favors. It's unless Deshaun Watson is just going to outright settle a la Antonio Brown, last season with his off the field issues. This isn't going to be cleared up, and especially with the criminal aspect of the Houston Police Department's investigation going on, that's not going to get cleared up anytime soon. And Roger Goodell, I'm just going to read a quick tweet here from Ian Rappaport at RapSheet. This is paraphrasing, but this is a quote from Goodell. "We don't have all the access to that information and pride ourselves on not interfering with it. That process is ongoing. Important, we don't feel we have that necessary info to place him on the exempt list." And again, this all gets back to the new CBA. They've handcuffed his powers on the commission exempt list to a certain extent. So they're going to need a lot more info to come out from either their independent investigations or the Houston Police Department, who really doesn't have an incentive to give them anything, them being the NFL, because the NFL doesn't have any subpoena power. So at this point, Stephen Ross just needs to shit or get off the pot.
Yeah, I still think that this report from John McClain, yeah, they've agreed to a trade, but the whole stipulation that these cases have to be settled and all this and that, I don't put it as a bargaining piece like you, Puma. I think that Stephen Ross really wants this thing settled out before he commits such a massive investment in Deshaun Watson. And based on what Roger Goodell said today, I mean, he also said today that Dan Snyder was held accountable. So I hold like what Goodell's saying with a grain of salt. I don't really put merit in what he's saying, because I think he's just saying what needs to be said. If I'm the Dolphins here, you're taking on a massive risk to make this trade. And, Jay, you and I were talking about this offline. You made some good points about them, having this trade in place and, not caring whether or not he gets suspended for, 8 games or whatever it is, because you're going to have him for the next 10 years or whatever. Yeah. Great points, but, like, you're tying your franchise, you're tying your brand to this guy, and if something goes wrong, It's a massive risk for the team. I still don't think that he's going to get traded just because of that report that came out that you need this to settle out all these allegations. And I don't rule out the fact that if he does settle, that the NFL is not going to step in after that and do something, whether it's a less extreme suspension or exempless, whatever. But I don't rule out that extra action on that.
Yeah, and Puma, I got a question for you as the resident Dolphins fan. Like, and I was having this conversation with Burge before he jumped on. What is the worst case scenario for Deshaun Watson after he gets traded to the Miami Dolphins that would not make it worthwhile? Because, short of him going to jail and not being able to perform on the field, what else would it be that would be the worst case scenario for you where would it be worth it? Because the point I'm trying to make is you got this kid for the next 10, 12, 15 years, or however long that is, right? Let's say at the worst, it's a 1-year suspension that Roger Goodell, throws out there and the league decides to sit him down. Even then, you've still got him for like years on end after that. So the question I have for you is, what is the worst case scenario for you?
Like, not to sound like that guy, and I'm not dismissing the off the field issues. They're a real thing, and at some point that's going to get adjudicated. But from the X's and O's standpoint, like looking at where this fan base is and this franchise has been, there really can't be a worst case scenario. There really can't. We haven't had a franchise quarterback since Dan Marino retired. Chad Pennington was I guess the closest thing for a cup of coffee. Tua's not the guy. Jay Fiedler wasn't the guy. And that's saying something because he survived Dave Weinstadt as a head coach down there, and Cam Cameron, A.J. Feely. The list goes on. Everybody wants to talk about the Cleveland Browns and the one guy with the jersey with 19,000 different names on the back. This franchise has faded from at one point being a true titan in the NFL to, a couple of notches above the Cleveland Browns when they were in their worst of woes prior to the last couple of seasons. At this point, it really can't get any worse. And we're talking about a franchise here that had that whole bullying issue with Richie Incognito and the player that ended up, wasn't really the same after that. The victim of that, he got popped for off the field issues with gun charges and stuff like that. So, this whole thing at this point, if he ends up on the exempt list next season, because clearly the NFL has kind of said, vaguely, but basically put it out there that they don't have enough to put him on the exempt list. So if they don't have enough to put him on the exempt list, they clearly don't have enough to suspend him for 3 games in the first place. And Adam Beasley, the former beat reporter for the Miami Herald, just tweeted out a great point. If him being, Stephen Ross didn't want to make this trade at all, he could have pulled aside any reporter like Woody Johnson did today when he backed Robert Saleh and the general manager Joe Douglas. And all Stephen Ross could have said was, we're not trading for Deshaun Watson until his legal issues are cleared up. Point blank, black and white, to the point. He could have said that. This whole thing would have stopped. He clearly wants to make this trade happen. I think this is just, gamesmanship of trying to figure out what compensation would be in place.